it was and ill-informed, not necessarily hateful. They didn't, I guess hate comes in many forms, and I'd be interested to hear what other people who've read it have to think about it, but it's hard to find now because it's not on the internet, and I also am grappling with whether we should give it time. I don't necessarily want to give the voice of this person time, but I did notice that everyone's saying hateful, hateful, and what he was railing against was corporate takeover of our country. And the belief that he put forward was the Democrats, because of the influence of immigrants, Democrats are gonna, he said, make a stronghold in Texas, and that could tip the balance of power forever. And he said something like, because of corporate influence and what's happening with our environment, we'll never get it back, although Republicans are terrible too. His whole thing was about hating corporate interests, but then he trickled it down with these right-wing disgusting talking points of like, if we could just keep immigrants out, everything would be okay. And then I didn't make the leap between shooting mothers in buying children's clothes in a Walmart to like stopping a whole wave of what he called this wave of immigration. But there was no sort of like, I hate Latinos and Mexicans are dirty kind of talk in it. He was trying to save the republic in his demented mind. And I just think when I was listening to some of the coverage, no one mentioned that. And when they say the hateful rhetoric, you think he says, I hate Puerto Ricans, or I really despise people from Guatemala, they're XYZ, things that Trump has said. What did he call them? He called rapists, right? So there was none of that in there. I just thought it was really interesting because when I'm thinking about what hate looks like, it looks like that to me.
I'm glad you brought that up because in thinking about this and knowing we were going to talk about it, I was trying to figure out what my take on it was going to be. And it's very interesting that the points that you raised there about the alienation that comes from corporate dominance is, I believe, the real theme, because the racism is the effect. It's not the cause of the shootings. And if we have people, and I haven't seen any kind of study that looks at all these folks who've been doing these things, how many of them are underemployed, working 3 jobs? How many of them can't get ahead on their money? How many?
This guy, he's living with his parents.
Yeah, how many are having those problems? And then as a result of not knowing what to do about it, then they begin to adopt the blame on the immigrants. And so I think that our analysis should also look at the financial causes for this alienation, and not simply that these people are just racist. Their analysis is that, but they're being exploited and they're financially falling far behind.
Yeah, exactly. And both of the shooters were in their early 20s. I don't know I read as much as you can read about what happened in Dayton. The fact that he shot his sister seems either weirdly too coincidental or on purpose. I don't really know. It didn't say. I'm waiting for more information about that. But there's devastated families in our communities now. And so I just, we have a poem that I would like to play in honor and in memorial to, what has happened. It's hard to know how to respect the people, hard to know how to pay homage, but this is a poem that was making the rounds on the internet. It is by an artist named In-Q, and I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. Here it is.
When is it time to talk about it? After Sandy Hook, when 26 lives were took, the politicians shook their heads and said we shouldn't talk about it. Our nation grieved. They gave their prayers and sent their tweets, but they didn't want to talk about it. We can't politicize obvious insanity, but I was just as culpable for what I didn't do or say, because honestly, it hurt too much. I didn't want to talk about it. Well, now I want to talk about it. Private guns have killed more Americans since 1960 than all of our wars combined. Now, personally, that's a statistic that completely blows my mind. Or what about the number of our gun-related homicides? It's higher than any other developed country by 20 times. And that's not only crimes, because on the average, roughly 33,000 people every year lose their lives. If that was terrorism, we would lose our minds. If that's not terrorism, we have lost our minds. In fact, maybe terrorism should be redefined, because mass shootings have become a sign of modern times. When do we draw the line? When do we grow a spine and stop using the Second Amendment to hide behind? You want to keep your guns, that's perfectly fine. I'm not arguing to take them away unless you're hunting lions. And yet the NRA accuses me of lying, like secretly I'm trying. That way they change the conversation from the people dying. It's really evil. I am tired of this misleading line they're feeding to the media. The talking points are really just excuses to be greedier, and Congress won't do their jobs because lobbyists have paid them off, so they ignore the problems that they're there to solve. Public service has a private interest when campaign contributions make them liable to the parties that contribute. It's a form of paying tribute, but the dollars make no sense. How can a background check be something that we're against? If the prevailing argument is it's about our mental health, then it's illogical to think that regulations wouldn't help. And while the left and right fight, both are dying in between. It's not the red, white, and blue. It's the red, white, and green. I can't take an open water bottle on a plane, but I can walk around Nevada with an AR-15. Can't you hear the children scream? Can't you hear the children scream? Can't you hear the children? Can't you hear them? Can't you hear them scream? You're on the wrong side of history. There is no in-between. When you look back in 20 years, tell me who you want to be. Can't you hear the children? Can't you hear them? Can't you hear them scream? It echoes through the halls of schools that were replaced by crime scenes. Can't you see the children? Can't you see them? Can't you see them bleed? Can't you see their parents seeing them in each and every dream? When the news vans have left and they're left with quiet streets and private grief, but they can't leave, they can't leave, they can't leave. So they count the seconds, minutes, hours, days, and nights and weeks, dealing with a pain so deep that it's awake inside of sleep. It's in their bones and in their smiles and in their hair and in their speech. And in the morning they remember tears streaming down their cheeks, chest heaving from the morning. It's impossible to breathe. And at that point, it doesn't matter what you once believed. We have let a special interest hold us hostage over greed, but it's in our hands, so why are we the ones that have to freeze? Don't move anything. Don't say anything. Don't do anything. Don't change anything.
Poem by InQ. You can find it on the internet. It's all over the place, and we're happy to bring that to you. And I mean, you know, you have to talk about these things, but from the People's Radio, we want to talk about it as much as we can with respect for the families and what they're going through right now. And also from a perspective that you're not getting well, I mean, they're talking about giving the guy the death penalty. That's not going to fix anything. He knew he was going to get the death penalty. He wrote it in his screed that, you know, I'll probably either die there or get the death penalty. But that's good, he wrote, because I think my family's going to hate me after this, and I wouldn't want to live with that. He wrote that in there. And what is it? They said they were they're looking at King. They said they're looking into it as if it's not a hate crime, but a terrorist act, right?
Probably because of the political implications. Then it becomes terrorism. So they've got a little parcel for each. Where is it that this manifesto can be seen? Because it's very interesting that
they're taking it down all over the place.
That they're taking it down.
I got it.
Yeah,
I could put it up.
Yeah, I think so. I think people have a right. People have a right to know.
That's the beauty of WBAI is because we are a community, and people emailed me this thing when I was looking for it. I looked in my inbox, and there it was, and I was really grateful to the listener and member of our station who did that. The point I wanted to make about the terrorism, if they're looking at it in terms of terrorism, they're usually, don't they research the one? It's something. It's something. Anyway. I'm just really grateful that I'm a member and a part of this radio station that is a people-powered radio station. You know, we're in our pledge drive, as you've heard, because we've had pledge shows on, we've been preempted, and also we've been bringing you gifts in order for you to make your contributions. Now it's August, so I know people are away, and I know it's hot, and I know it's slowing down a little bit. Here, people are slowing down, but today we thought we would bring you as a gift for asking for your donation to this station, which, by the way, you can make at the following number, 516-620-3602, 516-620-3602, and online at give2wbai.org. We hope that you will make a donation in any amount. If you're able to pledge at the $75 level, we have the book that we talked about with the author, Shannon Watts, who is the founder of Moms Demand Action. We have that book again for you today. It's called Fight Like a Mother. It is the account of how one mother's cry for change became the driving force behind gun safety progress. We just had her on last week in the wake of the Garlic Festival shooting, and now there's these 2 other shootings. So she did remind us last week in that interview that even though these things are happening on the regular, shall we say, that there has been progress in certain states, progress in certain areas. She reminds us to get people, when you're voting for any area, including dog catcher, any election, she reminds people to, even if it doesn't seem like if they're going to have a gun rights stance, those people are going to probably move up in politics. So you want to know what their stance is on gun rights. And she reminded us that there have been significant gains. The book has the stories of perseverance, courage, and compassion that she and her group have brought to this fight. She's shining a light on the unique power of women, by the way, starting with what they have, just starting from home and leading with the maternal strengths. Doubling down instead of backing down, all of that. And while not everyone can be on the front lines lobbying Congress, every mom is already a multitasking organizer. And Shannon explains how to go from, an amateur activist to having a real impact in your community and beyond. The book is very inspirational. It can be very useful at a time like this when people are anxious, when people are, I don't think the media really helps with its coverage. It is, the media has an if it bleeds, it leads type of coverage of things. Things are misperceived. They're misreported. They're skewed toward fear because fear is addicting. And we're trying not to do that here on WBAI, and that is why we need your support. 516-620-3602, 516-620-3602. You can give at any amount, but at $75 today, we'll be able to give you a copy of that book. And also at $65, we'll be happy to send you one of our WBAI Resistance Radio t-shirts. It's unisex, it's comfortable, casual, loose fitting. Ooh, I love it when they give me a loose fitting. At Netroots, they gave me this enormous t-shirt. I can wear it out with a belt, or I can wear it at home as a big pajamas. Oh, it's the best. But anyway, this one is a little more, shinier and beautiful than the one that I got at Never's. And it can become one of your favorites. It's 100% cotton, by the way. So, and that is yours for a gift. As a gift for a pledge of $65 or more. If you want the baseball cap, you can choose from white or black. $50 gets you that beautiful baseball cap with a pre-curved bill. I don't want to do selling today. It feels weird. You know what I mean? To sell stuff in the way we're not selling, obviously, but offering gifts to people who become a part of this radio station. I just want to underline how important it is to be part of the People's Radio.
Where else are you going to get the underlying story for these kinds of shootings that have political implications and deal with our economy and alienation, and no one else is talking about that? They're hyping all the things that don't lead any connection back to a word from our sponsors.
Exactly.
And we're sponsor free, so you're going to get the unshaken, unbaked story here. You're going to get it fresh. And this is probably the only place you can. And I don't care if you are away. I was just away. I was still checking in on the station. I was listening to my show. So the fact that you're on vacation is not an excuse. Your mind is off of your other things. So this is the time to come online, pledge, and keep us in mind that we're always here when you want to know what's really going on.
516-620-3602 is the pledge line. Give the number to WBAI.org. And I do want to thank the people who have been pledging, gift or no gift. And obviously, people who are becoming WBAI buddies at any level, people who are pledging at any level. I'm seeing the pledges come in. Some of them are for $6. And that I am grateful for, because I know those people are, it's not like millionaires are pledging $6. It's people who $6 means they're not getting their whatever they need in that day because they're getting what they need from WBAI. So I appreciate that. We also, of course, appreciate any amount that can come in. Again, we'll give you the book Fight Like a Mother for $75 if you're able to pledge at that amount. Today, the WBAI Resistance Radio unisex t-shirt is for $65 and a white baseball cap for $50. Our undying love and devotion would be for any amount of dollars.
And also, this is a time to get your membership in, because you are also eligible to vote for BAI LSB members. So there's a second reason. If you want to have some say in who speaks on behalf of the station and its direction, that's another reason to join or renew your membership for as little as $25.
Yeah, very important. Well, thank you, everyone who has pledged. We now have our beautiful, fabulous, so happy to have her every week, guest. So 100 years ago, just to segue into our next segment, without a little musical interlude, that's my dream, to have a slight musical, like a little ding before we move on to our next guest. But 100 years ago, Black veterans came home from World War I. This was literally 100 years ago, like this week, determined to fight for a more racially just and equal America. Instead, they were met with some of the deadliest violence in U.S. history, known as Red Summer. Today, we can still see reverberations of Red Summer, with white supremacy endorsed at the highest levels and police brutality inflicted on Black communities without consequence. We're speaking today with economist Dr. Julianne Malveaux about what we can learn from the fight against racial violence 100 years ago that carries us into that same fight today. Dr. Malveaux, thank you for joining us on the program today.
Well, good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, it's always a pleasure. Can you talk about what the Red Summer was?
Sure. There were 38 instances of white-initiated violence against Black people during the Red Summer. White folks just went, just like they are now, buck wild. In Washington, D.C., pulling Black people off trolleys. In Chicago, stoning a child because he, who couldn't swim, was on a raft and it drifted over to the white area of the beach. And so they stoned this child to death, and then he drowned. And then when then spread the rumor, and often rumors are part of this, so spread the rumor that Black people had killed a white policeman, which did not occur. And white people then just basically went through Black neighborhoods, basically wilding, the word that your president used to describe some violence in New York City in the 80s, wilding with Black men. But this was wilding from white people.
Projection. We never see that. We never see projection.
In Chicago and in Washington, Black people fought back. In fact, in Washington, I think there were more white deaths than Black, because you had these veterans who had these guns and they weren't having it. In Chicago, I think it was 23 Black people but 15 white people, because, again, Black people weren't having it. But in other parts of the country, Black people didn't fight back, or they fought back and were slaughtered. In Phillips County, Arkansas, Black farmers simply tried to organize. They wanted to get better prices for their cotton. And what ended up happening in Phillips County is 200 Black men, hear me, 200 Black men were killed, and women, but it's mostly men, were killed in about a 2-week period.
Dr. Malveaux,
because they dared organize. They dared try to organize. And the person who, one man actually, I've forgotten his name, he had a little bit of money. He owned a couple of his own mules, and he owned some land. And so, see, a lot of these lynchings and wilding sprees had less to do, which you always hear had something to do with rape, less to do with rape than it had to do with economics.
Dr. Malveaux, it seems very easy to make the connection between what was happening in the Red Summer and what just happened in specifically El Paso with a white guy going wild on Latinos.
You know, what's interesting to me, I came home yesterday, I went to the beach. Yay! So much fun. And I came home and said, I'm going to write this, and then I didn't because I got too much sun. But
I know just what you mean. No.
I'm such a nerd, so I very rarely do that kind of thing, but I did. But anyway, long story short, throughout the whole Red Summer, people refused to use the words terrorism. They refused to they refused to label it as white. In some cases, they literally erased the record of what happened so that the newspapers no longer exist. And in some cases, Black people who survived were afraid to talk about it. So because they saw what the consequences were. So now it took them how long? We've seen instances of this kind of terrorism. You know, Dylan Roof, we can call the roll. And only yesterday did they start saying white supremacist terrorism. Only yesterday.
I just want to take credit here. We at WBAI, not just me, but we at Pacifica as a network, we started that. Other people who are in the independent media started that, and it has finally trickled up to being you're not able to, ignore it anymore.
No, but it's amazing to me that they're so reluctant to use those terms. I mean, and then the president, I've been admonished by my fan club to stop calling him the orange orangutan. Although it
Well,
seems
let's
to
call him
fit.
something else, like an orange fascist. Pick a different one. There's so many.
After
They
all,
really
you're,
are.
You're,
I
you're,
just call
you're
the occupant.
You're being disrespectful to orangutans when you do
That's
that.
true.
That's
the
what
thing.
they tell me.
I
Yeah,
do love
yeah.
an orangutan.
Well, just call the occupant. I mean, he could occupy the house that enslaved people built, or hopefully in 2021 he'll be occupying his own personal little jail cell. But in any case, he now wants to call this terrorism the result of mental illness. I mean,
Well, he has it. He's a
any
spreader.
excuse you can use. But the Red Summer really, I mean, it really did speak to the fact that lynching was about keeping black people in their place. It was about whenever someone came back with a response to anything, they were going to kill. I mean, it didn't stop at the Red Summer. The Red Summer, 38 instances in one summer. But it continued
And
to...
I like how what you said in your article, by the way, you can read more about what Dr. Malveaux has written in this area. I like what you wrote in your article about how black people had just come back from World War I and they weren't about to come back, and they had just fought for their country, and then they're getting this at home. So they were the people involved were like, no, we're not doing this anymore. And I also wonder why people don't think that Latinos can also purchase guns. Many Latinos are legal residents. I don't understand. I'm not suggesting everyone should buy guns and then we'll just have an arms race at the Walmart. Although Walmart, by the way, does sell guns, so I also thought that was kind of an interesting thought about how it all comes around full circle. This idea of people becoming empowered by having served the country. Can you talk to that?
Sure. I mean, we went to fight for democracy. It's a very interesting period in black history because in Crisis Magazine, actually, W.B. Du Bois, who was, as we all know, very leftist, progressive, there was a debate in the black community, should we fight? Because there had been so much post-Reconstruction violence aimed at black people. So Marcus Garvey did not believe the black men should join the war. But W.B. Du Bois, in a fit of American nationalism, which was very unusual for him, actually wrote an editorial in Crisis that said we should pull together and we'll come back to a better country. He believed that black men, and it was mostly men at that time, almost entirely, if black men enlisted and fought, that America would then respect them, respect their efforts, and welcome them back.
Oh.
Nothing could have been further from the truth. And in 1919, W.B. Du Bois wrote another editorial saying, I'm sorry,
Saying
y'all.
sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I apologize. He wrote that editorial because that's not what happened. Some men were lynched in their uniforms, Brownsville, Texas. Mm-hmm. So because of the trivial ways that their service undermined white supremacy, as in black men who had just got finished serving in the war were not going to get off the sidewalk for white people.
Now, W.E.B. Du Bois also, it's not known, but he also accepted a commission in the Army. So he had a little bit of financial interest in putting that position forward. But what I wanted to ask,
no, wait a minute. We got to pause there.
Yeah, I didn't know that, King.
Yeah, he had some kind of commission. And
I'll look that up.
Yeah, look it up. Look it up. And so the question I have for you is that I'm interested in the whole idea of self-defense. And we have a right. The Constitution gives us a right to defend ourselves. And we not only saw that after the Civil War, we saw that after World War I, after World War II, and after Vietnam. So what are the implications for self-defense, the fact that this history has shown that people in communities have organized to protect themselves after these kinds of epic eras?
Well, you know what happened, King, is that even though the Constitution guarantees you the right of self-defense, those black people who exercised that right paid tremendous consequences because the juries were all white, the judges were all white, and they were all racist. And so very, very extremely infrequently did someone escape the consequences. There's one case in Washington, D.C., which is fascinating. A woman, her first name is Carrie, and her last name is escaping me. But in any case, some policemen bust into her home. She and her father hid in a closet, but there were shots fired, and so she fired back. She or her father. It's kind of murky. We don't know which one did it because they both they never were quite truthful. Anyway, long story short, they were arrested for murder. White man was murdered. They were arrested for murder. White man who busted into their house.
Wow.
They were arrested for murder. The father and daughter spent 18 months in jail. At some point, father seems to have cut some kind of deal because charges were never brought against them. But there was a trial for her. She was found guilty of first-degree murder. Her lawyer appealed, and she was retried, this time found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. But no penalty was ever imposed because her lawyer went to appeal again. But it was a clear case. You bust into my house, just don't try it.
Yes, stand your ground laws must be just for white people.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Stand your ground against people of color. That's
stand
what it
your
is.
gun laws, white folks.
Dr.
Play
Malveaux.
that funky music, white folks. Stand your gun laws, white folks.
Dr. Malveaux, you spoke. We're up against the break, and I'm wondering if you'll stay with us through the break. We'd love to allow callers to call in and make their voices heard, or have a question for you. Do you have a few more minutes for us?
I've got a few minutes. Of course.
I'm so happy. And you also spoke about Eric Garner, and we're going to be talking about the what's going on in the Eric Garner case in the second half of our program. So you're listening to Waking Up. I'm Julianna Forlano here with King Downing in the studio. It's 72 degrees, going up to it's 85 and partly cloudy. 2516-620-3602. And thank you for that pledge that came in from Forest Hills. But we need more. 516-620-3602. At least for this fund drive, we definitely need more. And then eventually we leave you alone, and then we have another fund drive once we run out of money. So we are definitely hand to mouth here, and we shouldn't be, because we are one of the only radio stations in the whole country that is completely listener-sponsored. So please make your pledge now. We need it to keep all the voices you hear here on WBAI on the air. 516-620-3602. We'll be back after this. I'm Julianna Forlano.
With King Downing. There's one part of the song I didn't get to. Officer, 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 overseer, overseer, overseer.
Yes, we waited, but the time was ticking, and I don't want to keep Dr. Malveaux on the phone for too long. We're taking your calls along with Dr. Malveaux, 212-209-2877. If there's a caller on the line, we will ask you to keep your points tight, because look at that, the phone lines are lighting up. So points and or questions. Caller, your name and where you're calling from. Hello, you're on the air.
Hey there, thank you for taking my call. First of all, I want to thank Dr. Malveaux.
Yes.
Okay, I said it right. For the point on Red Summer. In regards, I would like to ask Dr. Malveaux if she feels that, number one, the Red Summer conflict, attack on African Americans, soldiers returning African Americans, differs from the onslaught that's going on now, where the shooters have even posted the manifesto stating that they are basically killing Latinos based on the increase in population, and they feel that they're taking their jobs. So what I'm saying is to compare, or not to compare, but to basically merge the two. There is a difference. I'm not saying it's right.
Let's have her answer the question. I think she's gotten the gist of the question.
So, my sister, thank you for the question, and there are clear similarities. First of all, when we look at the leadership, you're looking at Woodrow Wilson, who was a virulent racist, who lied when he was elected to the NAACP and others, very much like the present occupant. What do you have to lose? I'm better than the alternative, blah, blah, blah. So you have the leadership. All rot comes from the top. This rot is coming from the top. Number two...
It's the only place trickle-down actually works, the rot from...
Number two, the issue is it has been economic competition. There was as soldiers returned from World War I, there was a recession. In addition, in northern cities, you had African Americans who had been brought to the north as strikebreakers often, because the unions wouldn't accept them. If the unions had accepted them, that would have made a big difference. And so especially white ethnics, very much resented these folks, and so it was very easy, Chicago in particular, the meatpacking industry, et cetera, very easy to turn on this community. Now you see this deranged young white man, but the derangement is not the issue. The criminality is. Who puts out this screed, and he's upset about increased Latino population. Implicitly, they're taking our jobs. Same thing. So there are historical parallels, and again, we've seen attacks throughout we've seen racial attacks over history, but this is the first time we're beginning to hear the term white terrorism.
Let's take another caller. Caller, you're on the air. Your name and where you're calling from.
Hi, it's Russell in White Plains.
Oh, hi, Russell. Go ahead.
Arming ourselves is playing right into the hands of the white supremacists. They want a civil war. They'd love to have us fighting it out. Nowhere in our founding document says there's a right to self-defense. We have a right to life, but that's in opposed to the right to own a gun. I'd like to ask Ms. Malveaux, because I'm sure she knows, police forces were organized in the 1850s as slave-catching groups. There were no police forces when the Constitution was written, the Second Amendment, 1787. It's a well-regulated militia. Is our police department. We have to take the guns away from every single one of these fanatics, and I think the grandmothers should go start doing it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Russell.
Thank you. Great call, great point, and absolutely we didn't have police departments. And if you look at the origins of northern police forces, especially Oakland, California, that I know a little bit about, Oakland actually explicitly, historically recruited in the South. So they were looking for white racists to come be police officers to keep black people in line.
The misunderstanding around well-organized militia is a really great point that Russell brings up, that the well-organized militia is supposed to be the police, not the rest of us.
Yeah, but that's not, he didn't even say that. He said that we don't have a right to self-defense. And of course we do. That's legally recognized, that when people are breaking down people's doors and they're rioting through neighborhoods, people do have a right to defend themselves.
It might not, is it in the Constitution or is it just somewhere else?
It may not be in the Constitution, but there's an issue. I mean, I find myself at odds right now around the whole gun ownership issue because I'm working on something that has all this Red Summer lynching in it. And there would have been far more destruction in many cases had black people not had guns. I've always talked about gun control and eliminating who might have a gun. And I'm looking at some of this stuff now saying, where is my Colt? And what is a Colt? My Smith & Wesson or
It is
something.
across the state line. That's where it is. Because we're in New York, right? Then we have some tight...
Well, in Washington, unfortunately, the Congress prevented the District of Columbia from imposing gun control laws because we don't have home rule. So the city council years ago did pass a law, and then Congress invalidated it. They do that to us.
We're speaking with Dr. Julianne Malveaux, a noted economist, and I'm thrilled that you're on the show with us. Just transitioning over to what happened here on Friday in New York, an administrative judge with the New York Police Department recommended that Officer Daniel Pantaleo, who was the one who did the illegal chokehold on Eric Garner, who died right there, they recommended that he be fired for killing Garner in 2014. Pantaleo used, again, that illegal chokehold, and Garner said he couldn't breathe 11 times. We all kind of know the story here before going into cardiac arrest. Pantaleo's been suspended from his position, and advocates are calling on New York Police Commissioner James O'Neill to follow the recommendations of the judge and fire Pantaleo immediately. Now, I do want to bring our attention back to what Bill de Blasio said when he was approached by activists before he was about to take the stage in the national debates, and this made national news. Here's the clip of what de Blasio said.
Let me tell you, I know the Garner family. They've gone through extraordinary pain. They are waiting for justice, and they're going to get justice. There's finally going to be justice. I have confidence in that. In the next 30 days in New York. You know why? Because for the first time, we are not waiting on the federal Justice Department, which told the city of New York that we could not proceed because the Justice Department was pursuing their prosecution. And years went by, and a lot of pain accrued. And in the meantime, what I'm working on is making sure, and I have for 5 years, there will never be another tragedy. There will never be another Eric Garner because we're changing fundamentally how we police.
And over the course of the last few days, family members have spoken out. This is Emerald Garner.
5 years. CCRB has made the recommendation. Commissioner O'Neill, fire Pantaleo. That's all we asking. We've waited 5 years. CCRB has made the recommendation. Commissioner O'Neill, fire Pantaleo. That's all we asking. We're asking for the congressional hearings. We're going to keep fighting for the Eric Garner law, but 5 years is too long. Commissioner O'Neill, do your job.
We have said time and time again, Mayor, you cannot be president with Pantaleo on the force. That's right. You cannot run away from this issue. It has been bungled. I can't understand how this could have been bungled even more. We are at a point where, like, I don't even know. Are we supposed to say thank you? Like, I don't even know what to do. It's been 5 years, and we finally got a recommendation for the thing that everybody knows should have happened years ago. That's right. Years ago. That's right. And he could have been suspended for 30 days with no pay years ago. Right. Just like you suspended the officer who gave a ticket and said your name after 3 days of happening. What you have told us that someone calling your name and giving a ticket is more important to you than a black man dead on camera. Wow. With a chokehold that's been banned. Wow. Like, what do we say to that? No one wins right now. This is not a thing that anybody wins. When it finally happens, it's not something we can celebrate because justice delayed is justice denied. That's right. That's right. And you had the power to do this years ago. And I always speak for myself. The department has done some good things, but we cannot sell that to a community who knows that they can be killed and absolutely nothing will happen to the murderer.
That's right. That's right.
If you want us to talk about what has happened, we need transparency and accountability. And we have gone backwards in that. We're at the point we have to tell you to please be like Rudy Giuliani when it comes to accountability. What does that mean? I don't care if you run for president or not, but I care if you're not providing accountability to the Garner family and accountability to all of the people who are dealing with the issues of police abuse, police misconduct. That's what I care about.
Clearly, Pantalino, is that how you pronounce it?
Pantaleo, I think.
Yeah, whatever. Whoever.
Yeah.
The murderer who used illegal chokehold. The chokehold was illegal. Lots could have happened before now. The public advocate is absolutely right. You know, it happened with no consequences. That's what lynching, that was the whole Red Summer was about. You could do whatever you wanted to do to black people, and you would not have consequences. As far as I'm concerned, Pantaleo is not the only one who ought to experience consequences. Eric Garner laid on the sidewalk for minutes without getting any medical attention. There was a black woman officer whose response was utterly indifferent to what happened. They should all be suspended or fired. And the fact that minor sanctions could have taken place before now, minor but consequential, suspended without pay. You know, that could have happened before now. So, you know, in the 24 people running for president, how many ever, might be 23 or 25 by now, who knows. But the number of people running for president, I actually like Bill de Blasio for a number of reasons, but this is a deal breaker for me.
I'd like to hear about those on another show. Everyone is we hate him, but let's.
Well, the main thing is that he has episodically stood up to the police, episodically. So you know, the Central Park Five would not have gotten their money were it not for him. That had been dragging on for almost 30 years. So I give him props where props are due, but this is a deal breaker. And what it seems to me is when he initially came in as mayor, he stood up to the police, then he got scared, and started equivocating. And perhaps he had this presidential run in mind all the time. Well, bye-bye, Bill. You're not going anywhere. You might not even make it to the next stage. Yeah. But back to Eric Garner, you know,
I just want to jump in.
A massacre.
Our clock is tight, but I just want to jump in with one comment. He is speaking completely inaccurately when he said that he had to wait for the feds. If I told you how many years and years of these police brutality cases and organizing I did, the feds would come in with a civil rights violation after the locals failed to bring forward criminal charges.
That's what I thought.
And so he had plenty of time to do this, and I don't think that he had to wait.
We're speaking with Dr. Julianne Malveaux, labor economist, noted author, commentator. Dr. Malveaux has a show. It's coming up today. Is that not correct?
Yeah, I will be sitting with Andy Shalal. We are in Pledge Drive also, WPFW. So we'll be sitting across the mic from each other at 9 a.m. in just about an hour.
So if you need a little, you can listen to the, Democracy Now! After this, and then you can listen to more Julianne Malveaux on WPFW. But right now we are in our fun drive here at WBAI. Also, by the way, I'm going to let you go, Dr. Malveaux, because I know you probably have to prepare for your show.
I do need to get across town, but but let me just tell your listeners to please pick up that phone and make a pledge. You know, I'm a volunteer. I don't get paid. I don't mind. If I want to get paid, I would, but I don't mind. You know, Pacifica Radio is a good cause, but it's not just the hosts. It's also all the operations costs and everything else. And so whether it's, Juliana, you talked earlier about the $6, whether it's $6 or $600, it really makes a difference. One of the things Andy and I are going to talk about today is the food stamp cut. That the proposed rule, there's going to be a 60-day comment period, that those people want to cut food stamps for 3 million people. For 3 million people over some little loophole they call themselves closing. Well, I'm not saying take food out of your mouth to pledge to WPFW, but maybe, one less fancy lunch and $10 to us.
But also the information that you're bringing people, I didn't hear that anywhere else. This is Pacifica Network, so both stations are in their pledge drive, and we appreciate you giving money to either wherever you listen. But definitely my job here is to raise money for WBAI.
So raise your money, and when I get on my air, I'll raise my money, and we'll both make our goal.
I'll come to your show and help you raise money on WPFW. That's great.
Sounds like a winner.
Thanks, Professor.
Sounds like a winner. You guys have a great rest of your show.
Bye-bye. 516-620-3602. 516-620-3602 is the pledge number to become a sustaining person for WBAI, the meat and potatoes, the rock upon which we stand. Give the number to WBAI.org is the website. Today we have a couple of gifts that we will be happy to give you if you are able to pledge. We're happy to take pledges in any amount, as it turns out. But today we have the book Fight Like a Mother, the incredible account of one mother's cry for change. She is the woman who became the founder of Moms Demand Action, which has millions. I think they've broken millions of moms across the country fighting for gun control. Dr. Malveaux did talk about gun control, but I think some of the things they're fighting for there are, mental health checks. I'm sure they would be used against. Racism is going to find any way to use it against people of color. But some of these things aren't just we're taking all the guns off the street. It's just, how about domestic abusers can't buy a gun legally? How about that? That doesn't seem crazy. It seems important. Anyway, that book is very uplifting and a beautiful thing to have on a day and a week like today. Fight Like a Mother, that is our gift to you, by Shannon Watts, for $75. And she was gracious enough to give us a whole bunch of those books that we are able to give out for folks who are able to pledge at that level. If you can't pledge at that level, for $65, you can have one of our WBAI t-shirts, which we appreciate if you wear, because sometimes I go out and I say, yeah, I'm a host. What do you do? I'm a host on WBAI. Oh, I used to listen to WBAI. Well, come on back. We're still on. Thanks to everyone who's donated. And you can also get a baseball cap at $50. Oh, there's so much to discuss.
I know. And that book is really something to have. I still look forward to reading it. But anytime that you have what we call an everyday person who gets fed up and then builds an organization and a movement, that's how things really happen. And so this is a playbook that you could use to build your movement, whatever area you're interested in. And we bring it all to you. That's
exactly right. It's not just about necessarily guns. It's about how to build a movement from your couch that affects both inside and outside politics, because they do the street work and they do the lobbying to get things done. So it's not like we have to have a long sit back discussion about what's the best tactic. No, let's just fire on all cylinders. Get busy. 516-620-3602 is the number. 516-620-3602. King, why don't you give out the number in case they hear a deeper tone and they're deafened to a...
In case you're still in sleep mode, maybe we can bring you out of it with 516-620-3602 or give to WBAI.org.
We also have on the line with us Arthur Schwartz, the host of Advocating for Justice. Arthur, thanks for joining us today. What's going on the program at 5?
Good morning. I have two guests today. The first is a guy named Adam Bunkadeko, who is running for Congress against the incumbent Yvette Clarke in Brooklyn's 9th.
Oh, that's my district.
And Adam got 48% of the vote last year and is never stopped running. He is a former WFP organizer, brilliant guy, absolutely brilliant guy with a big focus on housing as part of his campaign, and he's going to be on for the first part of our show.
What does he take issue with around Yvette? I guess we'll have to stay tuned and listen.
Mostly he takes issue with that she doesn't do much.
I noticed that. I mean, I don't see her out in front, and she has a very politically active district.
Very active district. It's almost, cuts across Brooklyn, and she's not one of the better known and most active members of Congress, and he thinks it's time after 20, I think she's been there 22 years, so it's time for her to retire.
Well, 22 years ago is a much different political scene than what we have now, and I know this district, because it's my district, is very, very active, both.
And it was represented by a guy named Major Owens, who was just one of the consummate leaders of maybe a founder of the Black Congressional Caucus, and an outspoken, lion in Congress died back in 2007, and Yvette won that in a three-way, I believe. And sometimes it's time for people to step down. She may be progressive in name, but she isn't progressive in deed.
We're speaking with Arthur Schwartz for Advocating for Justice. What else is on the 5 p.m.?
And then I have Norman Norman Solomon, who
we love him.
He's his current incarnation. He was a Bernie delegate back in 2016. He organized something called the Bernie Delegates Network. And at the convention, it was actually the way that all 1,600 of us communicated about what to do because the campaign folded. And he kept it alive, and he still has 3/4 of those people actively participating in discussions and organizing, and they helped push Bernie into the race back earlier this year. And he's going to talk about what's really going on the ground in the Bernie Sanders campaign, which is so misrepresented by the mainstream false media. So he's going to be on talking about
Arthur, thank you for bringing those two guests together. That's going to be a great show. 5 p.m. right here on WBAI. Thanks for being on the program today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're listening to Waking Up. I'm Julianna Forlano. We're in our pledge drive. King? I'm just
Yeah. Honor those pledges. Let's keep this thing moving, and then the next one will be shorter.
I hate to say this, but we're slightly tight. It's we want to keep it short as much as possible, and we have been trying to bring you gifts to make you entice you to become a WBAI buddy in the name of Waking Up, a sustaining member. That's someone who gives, what is it, every month on the credit card. I'm doing my impression of. My husband will know from The Godfather, the guy who, forget it. The guy who had to go and testify. It's like, every month you got to give money. So I worked for Genco Olive Oil. Forget it. You're looking at me like it was 30 years since you saw the movie.
I'm trying to think of the character. I watch it every once in a while.
The bald guy who goes to jail and then slits his wrist. My husband, I'm sure, is at home jumping up and down, screaming the name. Sounds like Pantaleo, but it's not.
If you know, when you pledge, also give us the cue who that was and who the actor was so that we can...
Pantangeli! That's the guy. That's his name. Pantangeli. Yeah, okay. Pantangelo. Anyway, we digress from our mission here, but part of our mission is to...
sell the olive oil here.
That's right. That's what we call the show. That's what I was trying to call the show as an Italian woman at the beginning. Sell the olive oil on WBAI. I'm happy to have you back.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
Well, I really missed you.
I missed you too.
Yeah.
And I missed Ilana, and I missed my brother at the Wheels of Steel. Michael G.
Yeah. Tomorrow on the show, Harriet Washington is going to talk about racism and the environment, and also Council Member Ben Kalos. We were supposed to be preempted tomorrow for fundraising, but we made a case that we have these two amazing guests coming on, and they're already scheduled, and please don't preempt us. And our beautiful Wheels recognize the hard work it takes to make the show every day in advance. And she said, okay. So we need you to give money so we can keep being not preempted. 506-620-3602 is that pledge line. Do it today. Do it today so we can finish up. We appreciate your listening. We appreciate your support. And we appreciate being here for you. Have a beautiful day.
Hi, this is Bobby Humphrey. You're listening to WBAI New York 99.